Hello and welcome to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Rachael is a speaker, inspirational author, and an overcomer. As Rachael is walking through her own journey of grief, she's challenging others to persevere and overcome their own circumstances. Find out more at rachelflick.com. Here now is your host, Rachael Flick.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. I'm producer Mike Segovia, and today we have a special edition of the Hopecast for you. We are going to be featuring the best of shows from 2021, and we're going to be playing some audio clips of these shows as we're going to give you a taste of these popular shows from this past year. I'm joined today by producer Jess as we wrap up 2021. Jess, hello.
Hey, Mike. It's going to be great. I'm so excited to revisit some of these moments and just reflect back and see where we first started just a little over a year ago. To kick things off, we're going to play a few clips that recap Rachael's story.
Great. Let's dive into episode 1, where Rachael recounts the worst day of her life and shares her vision for the Hopecast.
My hope for my future died with my husband. And when hope died, I became lost, overwhelmed by pain, and apathetic from the despair that weighed on my life. I remember walking down the hall of the hospital just an hour after Micah had been killed, and I said to myself over and over again, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this. And what I was trying to say was, I don't know how to tell my kids that their daddy died. I don't know how to grieve my husband. I don't know how to be a single parent to grieving children. And I cannot even fathom how I would move forward or heal from such a devastating loss. Your loss might be different. Maybe you lost a job. Maybe you're struggling with infertility. Maybe you have a chronic illness like cancer or something that has you bedridden and struggling in ways that you never imagined. Maybe you lost an opportunity. Maybe you lost a relationship that was really valuable to you. Loss affects our beliefs about ourselves and our beliefs about the world around us. Loss reminds us that we only have control over ourselves and removes directional anchors that we use to tell the story of who we are. But loss is a part of life. Pain is one of the many rich emotions we experience throughout our lives. So how do we keep from getting stuck? This is what the Hopecast is all about. We need hope. Hope is the substance that fuels resilience. On the Hopecast, I'm going to tell you stories and let you listen to people who have lived lives of resilience. They have overcome their circumstances. They got unstuck. The Hopecast is all about helping you get unstuck. One of the things that I want to do for you here on the Hopecast is to share with you things that helped me heal and helped the people whose stories that we'll tell on this podcast to overcome circumstances that otherwise would have crushed them. I want this to be a place where you can hear stories, where you can feel seen, loved, valued, heard, and understood at deep levels. But I also want you to walk away with a skill set that allows you to put the rubber to the road, that you can use every day as you work through your personal loss. The Hopecast is here to help you heal and transform from the inside out, to take hardships and heartache from experiences that should crush you, to take hardships and heartache from experiences that should be too much, that you shouldn't be able to recover from, to a journey of growth and healing with clarity and vision. I'm here as living proof that pain doesn't have to kill you. I'm going to share stories with you of people who survived hard things and eventually began to thrive again.
It's hard to believe that that's the reality of what Rachael has had to endure. But one thing I really admire about Rachael is how she has created a platform from her deepest pain in order to reach others in the midst of their own suffering. Let's listen now to her best friend, Kendra's recounting of that horrific day, followed by Rachael's interview with you, Mike, where Rachael shares how she would still have chosen to marry Micah, even if she could have known what would unfold.
So, Kendra, take me to getting the phone call that Micah had passed away and coming to the hospital. Let's kind of start people in the thick of it.
Sure. I was at my home with my two boys at the time, just doing a normal day with my youngest, but my oldest actually had the flu. And so I was doing all the mom things to care for him. Thankfully, my brother had come for a visit, and he was just hanging out and was there with us, which turned out to be a really beautiful gift from the Lord, given what the next couple of weeks held for me. I actually, the first I learned that something had happened is when I called you just to check in and say, hi, how are you? How's your day? And you told me Micah has been shot. And my first thought was, what? No, he hasn't been shot.
I was still at the house when I picked up that call.
Yes. And you told me that he had been shot. And then my second thought was, well, he had his vest on, so he'll be fine. And you said, I don't know. I don't have details. We're getting ready to go to the hospital. I'm packing activity bags for the kids. We're going to go and we're going to see him and see what's happening. And I had this horrible pit in my stomach that just, there's no words to describe. When I got off the phone with you and sat back and thought, okay, well, certainly he's going to be okay. But to hear that your best friend's husband has been shot on a phone call when you were just calling to say hello was really, it was intense.
I'm sure I didn't give you any lead in. I was hustling around the house and trying not to panic in that moment.
Yeah. So I shifted gears pretty quickly. And then all of a sudden, things started coming through on my alerts on my phone that there had been an officer-involved shooting in Colorado Springs from our local news and even the national news before I spoke to you again. And then something came through that said an officer had been killed in the line of duty in Colorado Springs. I knew that he was with a group, his team that day. And so, of course, I thought, well, it's not Micah. It can't be Micah. And I talked to my husband. He left work in Denver. He drove down expecting that we would go and be with you at the hospital. And then I got a text from a family member of yours. And it said that Rachael wanted me to let you know that Micah has passed away from a gunshot wound. And the visceral level of grief that came over me at that moment, I've never experienced anything like that before or anything like that since. Because somehow I knew this changed everything. You hear people talk about that moment where it's before that moment and after that moment, and that's how they divide their life. And that wasn't the moment for me, but I felt so deeply that was your moment of the division of your before and your after.
So intuitive.
So I called my husband and I told him on the phone driving, because he was also getting the alerts and I wanted him to hear it from me and not from the news. And I heard my husband sob. That was the first time I've heard my husband sob for his friend, for his wife's best friend's husband, for what this meant. And he got home and my brother was amazing and said, go, whatever you need. I mean, he's dealing with a throwing up, feverish, horribly sick kiddo. And he said, go. And we did. And we went to the hospital. And it's really strange when you're walking through shock, things that you wouldn't normally say to people, you might say, or things that you wouldn't normally do, you might do. And I just knew I had to get to you. And there, because of the sensitivity of the situation, there was full lockdown at the hospital, tons of police presence, and nobody would let me get to you. And they treated me as just another person who was there and who was sad. And I finally found
Which there were hundreds of.
There were hundreds
of people had come. Micah's family, the
and
community,
like all the family, and then there was a community,
law
and then,
enforcement
oh my
presence,
gosh,
first
there were
responders.
so
It was
many people.
packed.
I finally found the chaplain. He came walking out of the stairwell, and I went to him and I grabbed him. I said, I need to get to Rachael. I'm her best friend. And he was kind and gracious, and he took me right to you. So then
so grateful.
Began our journey through walking through that horrendous pain together.
Rachael, if you have known that Micah was going to die, would you have still married him?
That's a good question. And people ask me that a lot. And they ask me that. We ask each other that in widow support groups. Like, would you go through this knowing it was coming? Would you still choose the love of your marriage and your family and the children that came out of that? And I want to say yes. I want to say that those 11 years that we had together were precious, and that even though the pain has been, it's agony, it's torture, that type of traumatic death, it's changed me. In some ways, I'm a different person, and in some ways I'm better, and I'm refined by fire. I really connect with the imagery of the phoenix rising again, being reborn from the ashes, and that all of that pain, I can't say that I've seen, no, I know that I haven't seen everything that the Lord will do in redeeming it and using it. In some ways, I feel like I'm really on the beginning, and the Hopecast is part of that, to get to tell people my story. Man, I'm just like, it's fine. It's fine that I'm about to cry, but like, I'm about to cry. I didn't expect that question to hit me like it did. Whew. I would still choose Micah. I would choose my family. I've looked at my pictures of my wedding day multiple times, and us standing there and smiling at each other on one of the happiest days of our lives. And just being like, little girl, little Rachael, like talking to myself, like, would you do it again? Would you get up there and commit to him if you knew that you were going to put your heart in a blender in 11 years and experience one of the most agonizing traumas that can happen to the human soul? And I would, I think that in some ways, Micah and I talked a lot about the potential for loss of life in law enforcement. And so if I had time on another day, I could tell stories of ways that the Lord prepared my heart and things that he did to carry me and the twins, and even speaking to me about the days that were to come. And I didn't understand what he was telling me, but when I look back, I have the insight into that prophetic voice of what he was explaining to me. And so I know, even though that the theology of this, I get tangled in it, I really do, but I know that this was a story that God is writing, and that Micah gave his life for Scott to save him physically, literally in that moment. And that as a man of integrity and as a law enforcement officer who did everything he could to live above reproach, I kind of imagine this conversation where the Lord asks Micah, like, would you give your life for this? Like, would you sacrifice yourself for this issue, for the nation, for the people who are wounded and broken in the gap between the public and the police? And I truly believe that he would, and that for whatever reason, this is a story that the Lord is writing for a greater purpose. And I do believe that I have been called for such a time as this, to stand up and call the elephant out in the room, and to be able to speak into an issue that very few people with my background and who look like me, aka middle-class white women, get to speak to. And so I don't take that for granted. And those things, I can see meaning and purpose and healing. And I haven't seen all that the Lord will do to restore what the locusts have eaten. He promises that he will restore what the locusts have eaten. And I haven't seen the fullness of that.
Wow, that is some powerful stuff. And if you want to hear those stories in its entirety, you can always go back to RachelFlick.com and listen to those shows on her website. Or you can download them on your favorite podcast platform, such as Apple Podcasts. And if you listen on Apple Podcasts, would you do us a favor? Please rate and review. We really appreciate that, and it helps us kind of get a gauge on how we're doing with the show.
All right, next we're going to hear some clips from 3 different interviews. The first is Rachael's interview with Mark Negley, then Nick Vujicic, and to close us out, we'll hear Davey Blackburn. Let's get to it now. Here's Mark Negley.
In 2015, I was diagnosed with cancer.
Okay.
And I was given a variety of options. It was a significant diagnosis. They thought they could catch it before it took my life. It was chemo or surgery. And a week later, the day before I was to meet with the doctor and give him my decision, I was woken up in the middle of the night, and God told me I would be healed, and then he would reveal my commission. So that was a crazy thing for me to hear. I experienced
Was this an audible voice? Was this a voice in your mind?
This was an audible voice at 4 a.m. in my suburban home in Connecticut, and it's a crazy thing.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it. God has done some crazy things in my life.
As my eyes opened and I heard this voice, I kicked my feet around onto the side of the bed.
Somebody
I'm just
over
like,
there.
Oh, okay, hold on a minute. And I took a drink of water, and I thought, the pressure must be getting to me. I'm tired. Maybe it was a dream. And the voice repeated itself. You will be healed, and then I will reveal your commission. At which point, I bolted out of bed, checked the alarm, looked at the windows to see if anybody was punking me, looked at my phone to see, is there
Ashton Kutcher, where are you?
Exactly. What is going on? So went into the bathroom, threw water on my face, and started journaling and praying. And ultimately, God revealed as I read later that morning that I read the book of Acts. I felt some crazy need to read the book of Acts again. And as I got to chapter 20, verse 23, Paul said to the people that he had church planted in what's modern-day Turkey, who were trying to talk him out of going back to Jerusalem, he said, look, even though hardship and maybe prison await me, my life means nothing. The only thing that matters is to finish the race, and that race is to testify to the grace of God. And I kind of said, okay, I think you're saying you're going to heal my cancer if I testify and commit my life to your grace. And it was kind of like, okay, you can go to work now. I was like,
You've had this divine encounter. Now go ahead and shave and head on to work.
Exactly. So
isn't that crazy? But can I just say that we can expect God to encounter us in the mundane in our life?
So true.
Right? Like we could hike the Himalayas and have this literal mountaintop, monk-like experience, and sometimes God encounters us in a 40-day fast, and sometimes he encounters us in the wind and the fire, and sometimes he comes in the still of the night,
right,
to speak to us and to not make light of the ways when he's talking to you, when you're taking care of your baby in the middle of the night, or you're peeling potatoes, or you're getting ready for work in the morning, and that God can meet you wherever you are.
And when you're worried, the mundane things, you're worried about being able to pay your rent, or you're worried about where the next meal is going to come from. I mean, God is present and reveals himself in so many ways. And in this case, I didn't know what to make of it when the doctor called and said, so what treatment are you going to do?
Yeah,
and I said,
what did you say?
I said, I think I'm going to be healed. And he was like,
I'm smiling
like
for the podcasters. I'm smiling.
Homeopathic? I mean, what are you talking about? I said, I'm thinking God. There was a long pause on the other line of the phone. He's like, you should come in and we should talk
We
about
should talk
this.
about
But
this.
7 months later, after refusing treatment, and this was in November of 2015, doctors called me in to release them from liability
Medical
because I was
liability.
refusing.
Yeah.
So I agreed to have a follow-up biopsy to see how far it had metastasized.
Yeah.
And a couple of days later, they called and said, look, there's like no cancer. Can you explain what you've been doing, who you've been seeing? And,
Oh, my
and I just said,
goodness.
look, God,
Jehovah Rapha.
amen. And
Whew.
so you follow that experience.
I'm just
And I
covered
thought,
in chills.
boy, this is wonderful, isn't it? I've been healed of cancer. This is my journey. What could be better than this? And of course, 6 months later, my wife, who had been in a terrible car accident and had been on medication for 4 years following a drop into depression and a struggle with mental health issues, neurological pain that she struggled with every day, decided she was going to go off medication to lose weight for our son's graduation from high school. And she went off medication 6 weeks prior to his graduation. And 3 days after he graduated, he and I returned home to find that she had committed suicide.
I'm so sorry.
So now I'm in the valley. Now I'm literally on my knees, crawling like a wounded animal in the garage of our home, trying to comprehend what I was dealing with. I mean, just brokenness that that is impossible to articulate. Just if there is a way to put a photo in the dictionary for loss and brokenness, that was me at that moment.
Yeah.
And the only place I had to turn was back to God and say, like Job, in some ways, why? How can this happen?
Yeah.
What is the purpose? And, ultimately, the early mornings that followed that tragic loss.
Yeah, because you're not sleeping.
Oh my gosh, it's 3 a.m, the eyes pop open
right.
and you've got, this vision and memories. And, I just got out of the house and in the pre-dawn darkness in suburban Connecticut in May of 2016, I'm walking, crying, praying, running, sitting, just what can you do?
What can you do with that pain?
You're surviving, which is the first stage of the loss experience as
Right.
I've defined it in my book. It's just trying to get from a moment
Yes.
to the next day. And,
Absolutely.
And God revealed to me that he said, listen, I'm greater than that. And I wrote it down on my phone at the time, just put it in my little notes. Greater than that. I started bringing a journal. And for the next 7 days, I realized that he was telling me, look, I'm greater than cancer. I'm greater than mental health. I'm greater than depression. I'm greater than
Amen.
special needs. I'm greater than suicide. I'm greater than anything. And so I wrote a eulogy to that point and shared it at my wife's service. And following it, I received dozens and dozens of emails, texts, voicemails, and almost every one of them said, thank you for testifying to the grace of God in Jesus Christ. And I went back, I said, oh my gosh, a year ago when Acts 20:23 and Paul's
To the day, was that the day?
Well, it was about a month, about 13
around
months
that time.
later. And this wasn't about my cancer. This was about preparing me for what I was going to face when I lost Victoria. So, ultimately you realize that he is greater than that.
In your testimony, you talk about attempting suicide.
Yeah.
And I think people have a really hard time bridging that gap. Like if you're in a dark place, that feeling like it's always going to be that way. Would you walk us through a little bit of your story and kind of how you bridged that gap?
Yeah, I think it's for anyone. It's called forward thinking from a scientific, psychological point of view, where you just kind of imagine a life beyond what you know and feel and see now. And when I was age 8, I really started having a fast track of maturity and imagining my future. And it wasn't so good. Despite the loving home that I had, where mom and dad said I'm beautiful and God has a plan for me, don't give up. Despite the courageous efforts of my mom bringing me to the education system of Victoria, Australia, back in 1989 to be the first disabled student to go into a mainstream school system ever. I still felt very alone, very isolated, and very scared, to tell you the truth. I think fear is the most crippling thing that we can ever experience here on earth. But when we go by faith and not by sight, despite what you feel, despite what you know, despite what you see, when you put a word G-O in front of the word disabled, it spells God is able to do exceedingly abundantly more than you can ever ask, imagine, or attain. And so at age 8, I'd find myself having conversations with adults and realizing that my teachers were not there for fun. They were there for a job, and mom and dad have a job, and I'm never going to get a job. I'm not going to become independent. I'm not going to have a girlfriend. Even if I got a wife, how am I going to hold my wife's hand? How am I going to be a father if I can't even pick up my kids when they're crying? And so no one really had any answers for me. And I think that was the most difficult. And so when I asked God for an answer and he didn't answer me back, it was difficult to believe that there was hope. How could anyone imagine that I would be an ordained general in God's army to stand in front of the gates of hell and redirect traffic? Absolutely nobody.
That's incredible.
And so at age 8, I started imagining my life unemployed, a burden to my parents, very alone, and dependent. On whatever that would look like. I didn't even know. And so I got angry at God and said, God, you're not fair. I don't understand you. Why? Why did you make this happen? And why don't you change things if you can do all things? So at age 10, I attempted suicide, trying to drown myself in my bathtub. And age 12 was the last year of a 5-year depression straight. And I kept it to myself, didn't tell anybody about it. Nor the attempted suicide. I actually didn't tell my parents about the attempted suicide until I was 21. Age 13, I played soccer, hurt my foot so bad I couldn't walk. So at the bottom left of my appendage, for those of you who are only listening via audio, I have a little foot that's about 6 inches long, 2 toes, and it enables me to walk around, control my wheelchair, type 53 words a minute on a normal computer. And it's my mobility, really, in that little foot.
So to hurt that is...
And I couldn't walk for 3 weeks, so I'm feeling like disabled for the very first time. And I realized I had a choice, either to be angry for what I don't have or be thankful for what I do have. And when
Which is such a powerful processing to be having at 12, right? I mean,
huge.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's huge. And so, I've shared with people the power of having the attitude of gratitude. The happiest people on earth are those who actually have a discipline and a rhythm and lifestyle of being thankful for what they have, period. Doesn't matter what you have. It's about being thankful for what you have. That's the difference. But when the crap hits the fan, like 2020, I had to take that even further and think about the bad days that happened that could have been even worse. And so...
So you do use that as a tool.
I've had
it could
to.
be worse.
I've had to.
Okay.
So 2016, I nearly died in a Californian hospital. With negligence of a surgery gone wrong. They removed a benign bladder out of my bladder and a tumor, and I had internal bleeding. And if my sister didn't call for emergency surgery at 12:30 a.m., I wouldn't be here today. My dad we buried in 2017 of cancer. What could have been worse? Thank you. What could have been worse is that we couldn't say goodbye, right? So those kinds of things. So I know it sounds depressing, but it's actually not. When you look at it like how worse it could have been, it's actually counting the blessings of God that you quickly forget when things are going okay, or you just survive through things.
Those
and so
silver linings.
Right, exactly. And so with all of that said, attitude of gratitude began my foundation, if you will, of getting out of depression one day at a time. And my parents, being refugees fleeing communism Yugoslavia with nothing on their back, taught me to always be mindful of the poor who have less than you. And so between counting your blessings, taking one day at a time, and giving back to somebody, it helped me to feel like there was an instigation of purpose, which then silenced the stupid lies from hell itself in my brain, saying, you're always going to be stuck. You are nobody. You have nothing to look forward to. God has forgotten you, and you're nothing.
Yeah.
Age 15, real quick, I read John chapter 9. A man was born blind. No one knew why he was born that way. And Jesus said it was done so that the works of God would be revealed through him. And what changed my life was knowing that JC, Jesus Christ, didn't say, hey, I'm the healer. I'm going to give you a facial, and then you're going to be able to see. He didn't tell him his plan. So us human beings, we really want to know why. We want to know the plan. How can you take my broken piece and do something beautiful? I don't understand. If you give me the blueprint of your plan, then I'll trust you. But if he gives you the blueprint, then you don't need to really trust him.
Right.
As much as you need to trust him when you don't know the plan. And so at 15, I said, God, take my soul, take my spirit. I want eternal life, and I want you. I want your plan, not my plan, your strength, not mine. And then God used the janitor at my high school to say, hey, you're a Christian. God's going to use you to be a worldwide speaker to go around the world.
Ooh, just prophesying, mopping floors and prophesying.
That's it. Just like a movie. And he was the first guy to organize my first speech.
Wow.
And I said no to that opportunity for 3 months. And I did it, and it was just a blessing. It was the beginning of a worldwide ministry now called Life Without Limbs.
And then November 10th of 2015, I went to the gym early one morning, came home and walked through the threshold of my house to my absolute worst nightmare. I saw Amanda was face down on our living room floor in a pool of blood. And, I rushed to her side and called the paramedics. It felt like it took 3 hours for the paramedics to get there. It took 3 minutes. I found out later. And so, those traumatic moments, those freeze.
Yeah.
Everything goes in fast motion and slow motion all at the same time. And, to kind of spare a lot of the details of what happened, we found out that 3 men had broken into our home that morning while I was away at the gym. They broke into the house 2 doors down from us and saw me leave for the gym and decided to take that opportunity to break into my house too. Amanda was caught in the scuffle of that. I don't know all the details yet because a jury trial still has not happened. And so,
oh my gosh, you're still in the trial. I'm so sorry.
They've told us there's probably some details that are going to come out for the first time that we don't know about and can't come out until the trial. And so we're still kind of bracing ourselves for that. But from what we can surmise based on the information they're giving us is maybe she was protecting Weston, who was up in the crib upstairs the entire time. He was unharmed, got caught in the scuffle and was shot 3 times. She was pregnant with our second, 13 weeks long. And so 24 hours later in the hospital, they ran a bunch of brain scans and tests and pronounced that she was officially deceased. And that was November 11th, 2015, which was 4 years to the day, Rachel, that we packed up a moving van.
Wow.
To start this church.
Wow.
So needless to say, our world was turned upside down.
Yeah.
This is, in fact, the prescription to healing. Is diving deep into those emotions that you do not. It's scary. I promise you, it's scary, but it's going to always scare you if you don't face it head on.
Yeah.
It's going to always lord over you if you don't face it head on. And then it ultimately winds up booby trapping you later. It comes out sideways in a lot of, anytime we have unaddressed latent trauma in our lives that we don't deal with, file away properly, and ultimately let the Lord heal by diving into them, then it's going to ooze out of us.
Yeah.
This looks ugly. We all know
like an abscess. Yeah.
Yeah. We all know people who 30 years after their experience of trauma or whatever, they're still just spewing bitterness, and it grows worse and worse and worse unless you address it. So I would rather, and this is what I tell people, I would rather experience the pain of a loving, strategic, calculated surgeon.
Yes.
Than the pain of the cancer that's inside of me that's continuing to grow and fester. One's going to kill me if I don't address it.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to overtake me if I don't address it. The other one, it's going to hurt initially, but it's going to be so much better for my healing down the road.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. And what you described when you went back to the house where Amanda was killed, you had a plan, right? And I'm sure that in that very articulate space of healing, I'm sure you told somebody, hey, I'm going in, pray for me. And you chose the time and you went to the space and you had the support people around you. And I know for myself, when I call them grief tasks,
When you go and it's specifically related to your loss and it's going to trigger pain for you, I make a plan for afterwards, right? Like, even if that's like my super safest person and I can go and sit on their couch and huddle in a blanket, just, I don't have to be anything. I don't have to perform. I don't have to do anything for anyone, but I don't have to be by myself. I'm so much more courageous in being willing to tackle that pain than if it's just like Alice in Wonderland. Who knows what's in there, right? And you might never get out. And that is very true, that as you let the weeping and the anger come, the expression of your bitterness, your frustration, I don't think that there's any emotion that's off the table in trauma. But when you give vent to it, like you're saying, it does pass.
Yeah.
And so I'm always trying to talk people into this. I promise.
Yeah, that's the thing, is psychologically, there is not just scientific evidence, but now like virtually scientific proof that tells us this, right? The first line treatment that is the most dependable treatment for anybody who's gone through any trauma is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mm.
And all cognitive behavioral therapy is giving vent to what has taken place in your life.
Yeah.
Right? To this trauma. It's kind of entering back into the experience of that trauma by sharing or telling the story of it. And what I love about this is scientists, psychologists have discovered a reality that God wove into the universe, the way He wired us. That's what all science does. It's like, we just discovered how God wired this to work, right? And so that's where, when we go and we kind of back this up with scientific evidence, then we can see Scripture just laced all over it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can see the reality that we've got to, in the process of having some of these emotions, we take thoughts captive and make them slave to Christ, is what Scripture tells us. I even look at when God gave Adam a job in the Garden of Eden. He said, your purpose is to have dominion over the world and subdue it, right? To have dominion over the animals. Well, what was the job that played out his purpose? It was naming the animals.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think about the fact that he that names now carries dominion.
Yeah.
When we begin to speak out loud the things that are going through, the emotions that we're experiencing, as long as they're inside, they have control over us. As we begin to articulate them, put them together in a narrative and label them properly, then they begin to get filed away. And now we have, in the power of Christ, taken back dominion over these emotions. This is the way God designed it to work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those were some amazing shows, some clips that we heard from the Hopecast this past year, Jess. Really, really awesome shows. And what I take away from that is that each week we were reaching different people and giving them hope from many of the things that they were going through. And I know that's what Rachael wanted to do, Jess.
Yeah, and the thing that I think is so interesting is that pain is kind of a common denominator for everyone in life. And it doesn't matter who you are, what your story is, that's an element of it, because we've all suffered, right? And so for Rachael, with her unique platform, she's not only able to reach the police force or wives of military personnel, she's able to reach people who have suffered in other ways, not just from the loss of a spouse, as we've seen from some of these episodes, like Nick Vujicic, for example. And so I think it's incredible that she's just able to reach so many different people, meet them in the middle of their pain, and show them that there is a way out, that there is hope.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just for the normal person, if you would, that really gives them an opportunity to believe that there is hope. Hey, Jess, what were some of your favorite moments looking back at this past year?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm going to say that NRB was probably the favorite for me. Just seeing Rachael thrive in that environment and get connected with so many people and all the incredible stories that we got to hear from that event. I feel like that was just really an impactful time, and the convention was just so moving and inspiring.
I agree. That was awesome. And that was one of my top moments, but also the AACC conference that we got to attend back in September. Again, we met a lot of great guests and we heard some incredible stories. And I was really touched, Jess, because There's just so many different parts of people's stories that we all deal with, and you can kind of latch onto that and really find some hope and maybe an opportunity in your own life to overcome. So it was a great year with all those shows that we recorded and the many interviews that Rachael conducted. And I'm really looking forward to the coming year, 2022. We got all kinds of great new guests. We're going to be going to some other conventions and meeting a lot of great people. And they're going to be sharing their stories, Jess. And once again, giving people hope.
All right. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us for this special edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcasting platforms and leave us a review while you're at it.
We pray you all have a blessed holiday season and that the Lord reveals his faithfulness to you in a big way in the coming year. Be blessed, everyone.
You've been listening to the Hopecast with Rachael Flick. To find out more, go to rachaelflick.com. While you're there, you can book Rachael for your next speaking engagement. Her inspiring message will be sure to engage and touch the heart of your audience at your next conference, church event, or business function. Go to rachaelflick.com to book her today. While you're online, you can discover more information about all of the platforms that this podcast is on. Also, be sure to click on the social media icons at the top of the page, and you will be directed to Rachael's social media sites. If you listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, we would appreciate if you would subscribe and leave us a review. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time for another edition of the Hopecast with Rachael Flick.